Hello and welcome to this tutorial on behavior trees with Civil AI system. A behavior tree within the tool is a way of dictating behaviors for agents, and there are currently two types of trees. One is the work tree and another is the needs tree. All agents use both trees. The work tree is only used during their work hours, and the need one is always ticking in the background and processing and can interrupt the job list to get them to do certain things to look after themselves. To edit behavior trees, go to Civil AI System, Behavior Tree Editor, and then you can select between the two, so work or need. You can also load pre-existing ones. We're going to load the example scene one, and you have a list of 3 jobs which have a series of duties, tasks, methods, and actions. A job will have specific details about whether they have to head to their workplace, what character pools to use, time of day and end day, and the general weighting for that job. The weighting is in regard to whether this particular node will outweigh the need node. In this example, we are going through the woodcutter. So the woodcutter has one duty, which is to collect wood. That duty has a task, which is to find a tree and cut it down, and then it has a way of achieving this task. So each method should only fill how to do a task, and only one method should be used at a time. This is handled by the system, hence we got the until requirement met iterator being used at this level. So within this method we have a series of actions that take place chronologically because of the node, so in order iterator, and these must complete and every single one must finish for this method to be considered successful. When this method is successful, the task is complete or the next task will be started, and then it works its way back up the chain, and then since there's only one, it will work back down the chain, repeating the same actions again. So these actions, the actions actually have the doing effect in the world. So that's playing animations, moving to locations, facing certain ways, and all the other bits in between. There are a list of actions. You can find out what each of these mean on the wiki, but for the most part they should be pretty self-explanatory. This is where they're going to look at. So this is a series of kind of predefined ways of defining where the agent looks. Again, should be quite self-explanatory. Update each loop. This is great if the item or the location they're trying to get to is moving. So if it updates each loop, it does have a bit more resource usage, but it keeps it in line with where the item is. Since we're looking for a tree, that isn't a moving object, so it's completely fine, and we can not update each loop and get a little bit of performance increase. The type, you can use this to have a wider range. So say you wanted them to find some food, you could leave the name blank, and then it would find any item of that type, which would fill that role. Item ownership allows you to make it a bit more specific. So in this particular instance, this tree would only list the ones that the building the agent works for owns. So there could be other trees in the area which it doesn't have permissions to chop down, so it will completely ignore them. And then this is to help reserve items to stop other agents from trying to use it. Setting in use is kind of a trigger, so that's for a more in-detailed video later, which could be around interactions. But basically, when you interact with an item, you can have it so it causes other effects to take place. The no reset of item in use, that'll keep the item in use until the very next one, which doesn't end up using it. So on this one, that tree will go back to not being reserved or in use, meaning any other agent could end up using it. Point of interest required, that's to do with the slot system. And then endpoint behavior, this is a more dynamic way where animations and all that can be triggered and stored on items, so every agent interacts with them the same way, based on the options on the list. The next one is another idle. This is to do with playing specific animations. So this sets another bit of animations with a certain amount of time to play. And then the third one is where the actual item from the tree is spawned in. So they'll pick up the wood in the dominant hand, and that item will be spawned in. And then finally they go and find their storage, which is owned by their workplace, and then drop off the item. If all of these actions are successful, this method completes, and then because there are no other duties or tasks within here, it will repeat the same again, so it will go back to the tree. We have some similar ones here. So the sawmill worker, they will originally try to saw the wood and process the wood from their storehouse. So that's the one owned by their workplace. If there isn't any here, this action will fail. This method will then fail. There's no other method, so the task will fail, and then the duty will fail. When the duty fails, it will try and achieve the other duty. So that means this set of the tree up here is more important and has higher weighting than this one. So if that has failed, they'll start collecting raw wood and they'll go and get it from the woodcutter. So this workplace has set up a zone, and that zone is what is going to be used to find a storage facility that isn't owned by the current workplace of the agent, but is something that workplace knows about, so within the zone 1. And then it'll go and pick up wood, and then it'll bring it back to its own storage workplace, and drop it off. And this method is set up until fail, so that means if all these are successful, it will start again up here and repeat the process until it fails, which means when the sawmill worker has collected all the wood from the woodcutter within that period of time, it will then take it back to its storehouse and then start producing all the planks from the wood and processing the wood. And then again, when the wood runs out at the sawmill storage, it will repeat this again and continue until all the wood at the woodcutters is used up. And then you can press play and you'll be able to see this take place. So, just as we were talking about, this is the tree that the agent is going to be using, and you can see it's looking for a random tree. It goes, looks there, starts playing the animation, which is dictated by the chop tree action here, which has the jumping animation, which we're seeing, the length, and all the details. Going back to the agent, we can see it's chopping wood and it's currently nearly completed on that action. So when it completes, that action is complete, a new one comes through, and this is the idle bit we saw on the tree earlier, which is here. So at the end of this action, we'll have a piece of wood that spawns in on the agent's dominant hand, and it will carry that item back to the storehouse and drop it down. And then again, it will randomly select a tree. It so happens to be the same one in this instance. And then it's doing the point of interest action, chop tree. And it will repeat doing that. These other agents are currently doing the dealing with their hunger, because that's their highest weighted action currently. Sleep is not high enough, so that's the current need that is taking place and it's dealing with. And that's because the work is currently outside of their working hours, so they won't actually go and do